from students that we will actually be creating resources for these devices. These are two photos that I took of students working in my tutorials, and I've just kind of put arrows next to all of the mobile devices that students are bringing to class. There's lots and lots of them. Almost every student has a mobile device in my classroom. Now, at both of our universities, it's a bring your own situation with mobile devices. We don't buy an iPad for every student. It's up to students to bring whatever device they have to class, and it's not compulsory, but you can see most students do bring a device to class. I actually, we shouldn't really be surprised by this, if we think about it. There's a report that's published every year, a global report called the Horizon Report, and some of you might be familiar with it. It looks at technology at universities in higher education. And it tries to predict what people will be using in 1 year, in 3 years, and in 5 years from now. This is the 2009 report. This 2009 report is quite interesting when you read it now, because it projects that in 2013 students will be coming to university with iPads, mobile devices, tablets. And we know that that prediction was right, because when we look at our classrooms now, we see students with this device. And I've read these reports every year. This is actually the current report, the 2013 report. So I thought you might be interested in seeing what it actually is predicting for the next 5 years. And I've just cut a few bits out of this report so you can see. So the current Horizon report actually predicts that that the iPad will be used even more in education. So I've underlined here a sentence that's important. This category is led by the incredible success of the iPad, which at the time of publication had sold more than 85 million units and is projected to sell over 377 million by 2016. So I think I see a lot of iPads now in my classroom, but the reality is in a few years from now, almost every student will probably have the device and bring it to uni and expect that their teachers are going to be using it, integrating it into the classroom. Another paragraph from this report which caught my eye was this one, which just highlights the fact that, you know, the iPad is an incredible tool because you can share content, video, images, you can present on it. Students can create their own personalised learning environments by taking all of the resources that are out there and putting them on this one portable device. I actually surveyed students in my course last year, and I did the same survey this year, but it's only just finished, so I haven't had time to process all the results. But this is last year. I actually asked students in my class to tell me what devices they own that they're bringing to university. And this is actually what I found. And I've summarised it in red there. Almost 80% of students in my course bring a smartphone to university. Is that what you see here? Do most students here have a smartphone? Yeah. Yes. About half of the students in my class bring a laptop to university and use it. And 30% of students in my class last year had a tablet device. By far the most popular tablet device was the iPad. Almost all of these tablets were iPads, and a fairly small number there of Android tablets. I also had a look at the university-wide results. This is just my subject, but what about across the entire university? Well, the university actually surveyed all of its students. About 2,500 students responded to the survey, and their results are actually really similar to mine. About 70-80% of students have a smartphone, 63% have a laptop, 23% a tablet. This year, the number of students with tablets has gone up, both university-wide and in my course. That's the fastest growing area across campus. Oops. Okay. Yeah.
I did a similar survey as Mario did at the beginning of 2013 for our first year students, and the number of responses was 86, so it's quite a good sample size. But what you can see from this graph is obviously there's, vast majority is iPad. But what I find more interesting is this section here, where if you look down the bottom there, it says very useful. So the students, we don't provide our students with a tablet computer, they choose their own, but you can see that the students overall found very useful, and the iPad in blue is the highest. So what we do in our university is that we provide our staff with an iPad, and we encourage them to use the technology in their teaching and learning. And the effect of that is that students are also bringing their, or buying their iPad or devices and bring them to the university. So staff must have the initiative to start using it in their teaching and learning. So that's part of what this week's about for us, is to help the staff here at this university how to integrate the technology into their classroom. Thanks.
Okay, I just wanted to point out at this stage that, again, we shouldn't really be surprised at this. If you look not just at the University of South Australia and the University of Adelaide, but if you look across the world, you see that many universities, many medical schools, this is medical schools across the world, are using iPads in their courses. So this is just a small selection of universities: Stanford School of Medicine, Curtin University in Australia, various schools of medicine, schools of nursing as well. So a lot of medical schools are integrating iPads into their courses. So that's across the world. Locally, one medical school that I've been trying to find more about, because they're doing some amazing things with iPads from what I can tell, is this Chen School of Medicine, which I think is in Singapore, yes. If you have a look at their website, it's actually a brand new medical school. I think it's a joint medical school between Imperial College London and the Nanyang Technology University. They just accepted their first group of medical students this year. So it's a brand new medical school. And they're doing some amazing things with iPads in their course. They've partnered with a European company who's helping them create some fantastic apps for their course. What you see here is an app that was designed so that when students hold their iPad in front of a model in a class, the software will actually pick up various features. So it analyzes the image and it picks up various features, and labels appear on the iPad. And students can tap on those labels and get more information about the model or the specimen or the dissection or the picture that they're looking at. So it's a really interactive way to learn medicine. And this school or university is doing some amazing things, so it's one to keep an eye on. This is actually a quote from their senior vice dean, and he basically says the iPad is an essential learning tool. It's putting technology onto the iPad enables students to visualise, learn and revise wherever they are. So this is a brand new medical school, cutting edge, really embracing this device in their teaching. What about clinicians? So we've talked about students. We'll show you how lecturers like us are using the device. But I also came across a really interesting survey that just happened a few months ago. It was a US survey where they surveyed clinicians, I think it was physicians, so doctors, GPs, and asked them firstly whether they had planned to integrate tablets into their practices this year, and 59% of physicians said yes, they were. The overwhelming majority of those physicians, so 68%, said they would be looking at integrating the iPad into their practices. 51% said that they would use the iPad for research and referencing, which I thought was really interesting. You know, a lot of the time you think an iPad in a doctor's surgery might be used to show people, you know, where their heart is and what's wrong with their arm or leg. But actually a lot of doctors are using it to do research and referencing, to search for the latest articles on topics that relate to their work. And we'll show you a little bit about that tomorrow. And 83% are planning to use it to access electronic health records for their patients. This is very important in the US because there's a law which states that, that there needs to be a move now from paper-based to electronic-based records. And many of the vendors of these health record supplies are actually moving to the iPad. So 122 vendors have already prepared iPad apps for their health record programs, and the remaining are preparing to do that. So a lot of people are using the iPad. Okay, so if we think about all of these mobile devices, iPads, iPhones, laptops, we know that students are bringing those devices to the classroom. So how do we actually, as lecturers, respond to that? Okay, so we know that they're there, we know students are bringing them in, but what do we actually do? It's really interesting. Last year, when I started becoming really interested in this, and I noticed students were bringing the devices to class, I actually went around our medical school and I asked staff, I said, have you noticed that iPads in your class? You know, what are you doing in your class? There are iPads there. And one of the really interesting responses that I had was just ignore them. Some of the staff said to me, don't worry about them, ignore them. You know, just stand up and give your lecture and don't worry about the devices that you give. If your lecture is good, it doesn't matter what the students have. You don't need to think about it. And I think the staff who said this were mainly older staff who were near retirement, I should say. So they probably didn't want to invest a lot of time and energy into this, but I think they were thinking, oh, well, the iPad, you know, it's just another bit of technology that will soon become obsolete, you know, will go away. I mean, I remember when I started teaching, we had slides, you know, and then we used to give overhead projectors. We had transparencies and we'd show that. And then we went to laptops and PowerPoint. And now it's iPads. Maybe this is just the next thing and in 5 years from now it will go away. I actually don't think that's the case. You know, this is really a paradigm shift. This is a big change that's going to be with us for a long time. Mobile learning on tablet devices. I don't think it is something that will come and go in a year or two. And I know it's here for the long term because I see videos like this all the time on YouTube. And some of you have probably seen this in real life. I've seen this in real life with my nieces and nephews. You know, they're babies, but you give them an iPad and they start not just banging on it, they actually use it. You know, they can tap on it, they can move a book, play a game, and they're 2, 3-year-olds. This is a 9-month-old baby. So the next generation of our students will be born, you know, almost with this device in their hands. So they will expect that we are doing something with these devices in our classroom. This is an email that I got from one of my students at the start of the year, last year. It says, "Hello Mario, you know, I should set the scene for this email. I said to students in my first lecture, if there's anything I can do to help you make the transition to university from school, send me an email and I'm happy to help out." This is the first email that I got about an hour after that lecture. He says, "Mario, you know what would be great if you could make an app. And that app would work for the iPad. It would be really convenient. I could press a button and I could get notifications of when new announcements are being made and all sorts of things." So this is not a student who was a baby and had an iPad. This is a student, you know, who's only had an iPad for a year. But already they're expecting us to be using the device. Okay, imagine the questions that these guys will be asking us in 15 years from now. And Tim and I, like I said, we are Apple Distinguished Educators. And earlier this year we went to Bali for the Apple Distinguished Educator retreat event. And we're somewhere in this photo. I think Tim is somewhere there. I can't quite remember now, and I'm there somewhere else. But what's really interesting about this photo is there were several hundred people were there. Gilbert was there and Tavicha was there as well. Tim and I met at this conference lots of people across Asia who are also Apple Distinguished Educators. Many of those people were primary and high school teachers. So teachers here in Thailand we met. And these are teachers in schools who are using these devices in their classroom. So those students who these people are teaching, in a year or 2 or 3, they're going to be here at Rangsit University and they're going to be saying, well, at school we use the device to do this and that. What are you doing with the device? So you really do need to think about what's coming up. So at some universities, give everybody an iPad. At the University of South Australia and in Adelaide, we don't give everybody an iPad. We just work with what students bring. Okay, so the second part of this presentation is really a how have we used iPads in our course. So I've talked about a bit of background, who we are. I've said why we use the device. You know, it's changing medical education. The students are bringing the device to class. Now we thought we would show you some of the different ways that we're actually using the device in our classroom. Today won't be much of a hands-on session, at least initially, But tomorrow we will absolutely have iPads out and you'll be able to experiment and play around with the apps. So we'll just give you some examples now of how we've actually used the device in class. And we thought we would break this down in a variety of ways. So we would first look at tutors, how tutors are using the device. We would look at how lecturers are using the device, how the coordinators of a course or a subject are using the device, how administrators are using iPads, how clinicians are using iPads, and of course how students are using iPads to learn. So let's start firstly with tutors. Okay, so here is just a picture of lots of paper. One of the great things about the iPad is you can go paperless with a lot of tasks. My course has about 420 students in it. We have 26 different tutorials every week and 5 different laboratory sessions every week, and they're all compulsory. So as a tutor, I have to keep a record of who's attending what classes, and attendance is compulsory. Students have to show up, otherwise they're penalised. So in the past, before the iPad, I had lots of paper on my desk, lots of class roles, lots of tutorial roles. I had almost 32 sheets of paper every week to go through. With the iPad though, I've been able to simplify that out. I use a particular app, and my tutors use an app now on their iPads called Attendance. And it does what the name suggests. It lets tutors actually record the attendance of students and manage the attendance. You can track how many sessions a student has missed. You can tap a button and actually email the students who didn't show up to class and tell them off. So that's a really simple app that actually has made my life a lot easier. Okay.
For my course that I teach with over 670 students, I have a team of tutors. I have 12 tutors. We have our 26 tutes happening a week. So what I've got, I've provided our tutors with an iPad, and I've installed a number of different apps on that to use in their classroom or their tutorial. The first one I'll talk about is Dropbox. Does anyone know what Dropbox is? Only a couple. Dropbox is a software that you install on your PC, and you also install the app on your iPad. So what you can do with Dropbox, whatever documents you put into that Dropbox on your PC will appear on your iPad. So it's a way I use my Dropbox like a USB. The iPad doesn't come with a USB port. You don't need one. I don't use a USB anymore. I use Dropbox. So Dropbox is on my work computer, my home computer, and my laptop, and my iPad. So it's one way of sharing content between your computers, but you can also share a folder. And that folder's got some little people on it. So I put my tutor's notes within that Dropbox from my PC at work. That document then appears on all my tutors' iPad. So I know all my tutors are working from the same document with their tutorials. You can also do the reverse, where the tutors can then put marked papers into the share folder on their Dropbox, and I'll be able to access them as well and look at their grades. So it's a way of sharing content. The old way we used to do that is to send documents by email. Some of those documents can be quite large file size. We don't do that anymore, we just use Dropbox. So that's quite a useful app to actually have on your iPad. The other way is to create sort of lesson plans through iBooks. and the tutors have those iBooks on their iPad as well. So they're following, the course content can be like this one here, around an X-ray. They can show the students the various bones from their iPad on that X-ray image. The other one is PDF Expert. So PDF Expert allows documents that I, as course coordinator, create, shared via Dropbox. So the tutors can actually grade the students on this PDF document. They can write comments about the students' PDF documents. These PDF Expert is where you get fields, and when you tap on that field, up comes the keyboard on the iPad. The problem that some people find with working with PDFs is that you are writing with your finger on the iPad, which can be a little bit difficult. If you have these fields in a PDF document using PDF Expert, you just tap on the field, the keyboard slides up, and you can type in. You don't need to use your finger to actually write words, which doesn't come out that well. So those are the actual apps I'm using with my tutors. So moving on from that with the lecturer. I might just add though the setup we've got here. So as you can see, as Mario's been walking around with his iPad, we're not connected to any cable at all. So as a lecturer, I give all my lectures from my iPad for a number of reasons. All my content is stored on this iPad. So if a student asks a particular question that's from a previous lecture, I can just quickly bring up those lecture slides. But also to start the iPad up is very quick. Normally, when I go into lecture theatre, I've got to log into the PC that's in the lecture room. I've got to put my USB, put the files in, and then I start my presentation. So it's usually a period of about 5 or so minutes. The iPad is instant on. Tap it, it's on. Before, we were stuck to a lecture podium. We couldn't move because the microphone was there. Now we can move using the Apple TV, which is a little disc device just here, and we'll demonstrate that, how it's used, how you connect it up in another session later this week. So the good thing about Keynote, which is what we're using here, is that you can take a PowerPoint presentation that you've already created. You can drop that into your Dropbox, and then from your iPad, you just tap on that presentation and it opens up in Keynote and then you can start your presentation. You can also control your presentation using your iPhone. Using Keynote Remote, which is a 99-cent app, it allows you to walk around the room, not go anywhere near your iPad, and slide through your presentation that way. If I hold my finger on the iPad, my finger then turns to a laser pointer, so I can point things out with my finger. So, great way to present, instant on. I can just use my existing PowerPoint presentations I've been using for the last 2 years. They were open straight away with Keynote. And I can also use the features of walking around the lecture theatre using my iPhone to swipe between slides. So if the students are talking down the back, I can just wander down the back and they stop talking as I'm still controlling the presentation with my iPhone. Prezi is an application that allows you to convert content that you give in a lecture to an animated series. So the diagrams move, you can zoom in, zoom out. It's a different format